Let's talk about 5 things that I wish I had learned quicker in my graphic design journey. Okay, so story time. Picture 18-year-old Rhett showing up at Liberty University for the first time, having chosen to pursue a degree in music after spending a couple of years trying to decide if he wanted to be a filmmaker or a musician for a living, and I chose being a musician. So I show up to the School of Music, and guess how I ended up paying my way through college? Through film and graphic design. See, I ended up making a concert poster for an ensemble at the School of Music, and I ended up getting a work study because of that. I had started teaching myself Photoshop and Illustrator just by learning on YouTube because I realized it was a helpful tool to have to promote film and music. But it ended up paying my way through college, and when I was looking for a job at a church as my time at Liberty was ending, I actually got connected with Rock Point Church because I was multidisciplinary in my creative fields. And so I ended up getting a job because I could lead worship and make videos and create graphics. So for the last 8 years, I've been on staff at Rock Point as the creative director at the church. Now, thankfully, over the last decade of doing this, I've learned a few things, but here are 5 of the things that I wish I had learned quicker in my graphic design journey. Really, I'm specifically talking to church graphic designers, but I think if you do any kind of art, I think you have something to learn from these as well. But I think you should stick around for number 5 because it's the one that I'm still working on today. Here's number 1. Good workflow trumps natural talent almost every time. Being a creative is not just about being creative. It's actually about learning good productivity. Especially in the church, it is not good enough just to be highly creative. You need to be really effective at what you do. And you become more effective at what you do by developing a good workflow that works for you. Here's what I mean. Post 2020, there is even more content than ever before that church content creators have to put out. Between graphics and sermons and illustrations and videos and social media content and website design and broadcasting, there's so many things that you might get roped into as a church content creator, and it's a constant grind. And the only way that you can keep a level of quality that you want to keep, and the way that you keep a level of effective communication, is by keeping up with the rigors of what is going on at your church. And so the only way that you can be effectively creative in that kind of environment is to teach yourself a good workflow. One of the things that I like to do is templatize as much as possible. If there's something that I do every single time I make a graphic, a certain grain setting or a way that I lighten an image, I want to put that in my template. I want to use a preset. I want to make the process of getting to the product that I want faster. That's what separates good designers from great designers in the church. So I really believe that if you can develop a good workflow, that will usually win out over talent. Here's the second thing that I wish I learned quicker. 99% of the time, your first idea is your worst one. Piggybacking off of good workflow, part of the process of creating is actually making multiple concepts and getting feedback. When I first started out, my first idea was almost always the final one. Now I might tweak it a little bit, but really I just thought I gotta make the first one exactly the way that I want it to be. I've actually learned over the years, get your first ideas out as quickly as possible because they're not gonna be worth it, but they're gonna get you to the idea that actually ends up sticking, especially as you begin to show concepts and ideas to the other stakeholders in a project, whether that's a client or a ministry at your church. The feedback that you get on seeing multiple ideas is going to help you find what is the most effective way to communicate in that project. So whether that's like an announcement graphic for an event or a sermon series, first you come up with a couple of ideas and then you bring your community into it so that everybody has a say in making sure that what you're making communicates the most effectively, because that's the goal of church communication, is to create a response in people, not just create something that looks good. The third thing that I wish that I'd learned quicker in my graphic design journey is this. Most people will not see what you don't like about your designs. There's a rule called the 80-20 rule that states that 80% of your outcomes comes from 20% of your work. But us as creatives, especially as graphic designers, we tend to hyperfixate on the other 80% because that's where the details are, that's where our style is, that's what matters most. But really, the 20% of work that you put in at the beginning to define the palette, the background, and the message is really the main thing that people see. What I've had to teach challenge myself is that most of the time, the things that I'm not satisfied with in a design, people didn't even see in the first place. If they did see it, it probably means that was a mistake on your part. But generally, it's just that first 20% that matters the most when it comes to making a design. Now, what I'm not saying is don't focus on the details. The details are actually what sets you apart as a designer. The cool thing about being an artist in your church is that you are helping to contribute to a visual culture that your church has. Most places accumulate a visual culture just in the way that furniture comes into the building, or what you throw up on the screens, or the way that things are organized, or the signs that you put around the building. More and more, the effective way to communicate is to create a cohesive visual culture. And so you as an artist are helping to contribute to that. So the details that you start putting in, whether that's textures, whether that's special elements, the things that make your designs as opposed to just information on a screen. Those are the kind of things that do contribute to a culture over time. But what I've found is that most people are not paying attention to those details. They're paying attention to the story that's being told and the information that's being shared. Remind yourself that it's good sometimes just to hit a base hit and clearly communicate, rather than hyperfixating on details that most people aren't going to see in the first place. Now, there are times for it. There are times to dig in deep and make sure that every detail of something communicates the way that you want to. But don't sacrifice that over productivity when most people aren't going to see the level of detail that you see. Here's the fourth thing that I wish I had learned quicker, is that good artists copy and great artists steal. Some people credit Picasso for that saying. I'm not here to debate that. I think it's a great principle. Really, what I'm saying is you need a catalog of references that inspire you and push you. Good artists copy what they see, but great artists learn from the things that they see and incorporate that into their own style. This gets into that visual culture thing I was talking about. You need to broaden your horizons outside of just what you do. You need to create a catalog of references that inspire you and challenge you to make better content that communicates more effectively. Take little pieces from different things that you see that you really like. Keep a storehouse of ideas. That's where you're going to keep getting fresh ideas and going to stay motivated about the work that you're doing. Because like we said, most people aren't seeing all of the details. They want to make sure that the message is the clearest thing possible. But the way that you push yourself creatively and stay motivated is by cultivating a culture for yourself of referencing other things. So I keep a folder on my computer. I've got a Pinterest board. These are the kind of things that I'm just constantly adding to, so that when I need ideas, I don't have to reach far to get them. Over time, you start to acquire your own style that really is informed by all of the good things that you see, but you're not copying as much. It's a fun balance to chase. Here's the fifth thing that I wish I had learned much faster on my creative journey. And honestly, I'm still really working on this today. Clarity is more important than cleverness. Let me say it again. Clarity is more important than cleverness. Now, we tend to think of creativity as the generation of new ideas. We get so excited about that as designers that sometimes we lose track that the most effective communication is keeping the story and the message the clearest thing about a design, a video. One of my favorite quotes is Ezra Cohen, a motion graphic designer that I really respect. He talked about in a YouTube video about how the feedback he got on one of his favorite projects that I ever worked on was, it was really pretty, but I didn't feel anything. As church content creators, we are helping pastors communicate timeless truth about the story of the gospel. And that filters into every single thing we do, whether it's an announcement graphic or a sermon series or whatever it is. So what is most important is the clarity of what you are trying to communicate. Now you can see that as a bummer, like, oh, there's sometimes I've got to choose clarity over creativity or over cleverness. You can see that as a bummer, or you can see that as a challenge. As church content creators, we're given a very clear canvas, and you get to make that canvas as great as it can be. Because I believe that there is great art that challenges our expectations, that exposes our desires, and forces us to think deeper about truths that affect our very lives and our very futures. What we're trying to do is to keep clear messages that reinforce that reinforce discipleship, thinking deeper about the gospel, exposing the desires of our hearts so that we can conform them to the image of Christ, challenging our expectations about what being a human in a fallen world is like. That is where you, as an artist, get to interact in new and special ways. But you're not going to get there by leaning into cleverness over clarity. The clearer you make the message and the better you build visual culture around the message that supports it, that is the essence of great design in the church. That's the essence of great art in the church. And that's what we're trying to steward day in and day out as creatives in the church. I'm still really working on that one. I don't know how to do that as effectively as other artists that I've seen, but I'm learning. I've had moments where I feel like I've hit that. And so that encourages me to keep on going, and I hope that it encourages you as well. I hope that you learned something from today's video. If you did, like and subscribe. But I really need more coffee, so I'll see you in the next video.